Well, folks, I'm back with another Castle Nathria review, and this time around we have some Paladin cards, including a new Paladin Legendary, as you see behind me here, and the return of an archetype with Silverhand Recruit Synergy cards, because this is Stewart the Steward, and he's so cute. He is a 3-mana 3/3 with a Death Rattle. Give the next Silverhand Recruit you summon +3/+3 and this Death Rattle. So that does indeed mean your Silverhand Recruit is going to be a 4/4. That is pretty crazy. So you hit your hero power button for 2 mana, you get a 4/4. That guy dies, you do it again. You might be able to get a 4/4 every turn for 2 mana, which is clearly a pretty nice hero power in the scheme of things. There are also going to be some additional ways to make Silverhand Recruit cards, as we'll see in future cards in this video. And don't forget that the Paladin quest line is still hanging around as well, which means other ways to buff and support all of these Silverhand Recruit synergy cards. So we could easily see Stewart the Steward tossed into a quest line deck that's all about Silverhand Recruits, and it's just driving Silverhand Recruit synergies home. But I also think technically Stewart the Steward could exist outside of a Silverhand synergy deck. This might be a standalone card you just toss into a deck that's a little bit more control oriented, a little bit more value oriented. You're happy to just kind of play a 3-drop occasionally, just weave it into a turn, maybe play it on turn 3, and then have this really nice repeating value engine of your hero power that's just getting you stats on board to take trades and so on. So, I think Stewart has that sort of dual utility. Good if Silverhand Recruits make sense and that deck works. Whether it's quest line or not, who knows? But maybe just a good card outside of that as well to give you a really high valued hero power. Now, I will say we've already seen some like devolve effects teased. There's always a lot of silence that can float around. So a deck like this is a little bit susceptible to silence effects. Stewart's effect in particular, once it gets silenced off, is gone. But at the same time, there might be a lot of other things. There's going to be divine shields and buffs, all these other possible silence targets. So if Stewart eats a silence, is that the end of the world? Maybe not. I don't know if you've sacrificed all that much, because you might have other plays that are then better off, and vice versa. Maybe Stewart gets to squeeze by because you've got other things that have already forced some silences. So I certainly don't think that's a real limitation that's going to hold a card or an archetype back altogether. And of course, if there are any Death Rattle synergies doing things like duplicating Death Rattles, chaining this, creating copies of it, then the sky is the limit for how big and crazy each Silverhand Recruit might get. So all in all, I think this card has a lot of promise. So next up here, we've got the Buffet Biggin. He's a biggin. He's a 4-mana 2/4 and Paladin card. Battlecry, summon 2 Silverhand Recruits and then infuse 3. So remember again, infuse, that means while this was in hand, 3 minions have died. Then it gets this infuse effect, which will give those Silverhand Recruits +2 attack and Divine Shield. And you can see here the infused version of the Buffet Biggin. So at a base level, you've got a 2/4 that summons a couple Silverhand Recruits. Remember, one of those Silverhand Recruits could be a 4/4 if you've already played Stewart the Steward. So, in that scenario, this would already be good. Also keep in mind, say like post questline completion, that could be like 2 3/3s, maybe even more if you played Bran or Zola shenanigans. So at a base level, not always inherently bad. Even if you like top deck this and had no chance to infuse it and you have to play it, three different bodies in a class like Paladin that has buffs, cares about lingering minions being left behind, not the end of the world maybe at a baseline. Not good, but not terrible. And then the infused version of this, I think, is insane. If you do infuse this, my God, you're getting 3 good minions, 2 of which have Divine Shield, and they're 3/1s. So those are like, the old Scarlet Crusaders or whatever, right? Kind of equivalent to 3-mana minions, just sticky stats. Again, Silverhand Recruit buffs can stack on top of that. So the infused Buffet Biggin is a really big, sticky, annoying board dump, which is typically great for a class like Paladin. So how hard will it be to infuse the Buffet Biggin? Not that tough if you're running a lot of Silverhand Recruit stuff and summoning a lot of Silverhand Recruits. I think he'll get buffed pretty easily and then present a really high pressure situation on board. And also the minions are kind of shaped awkwardly, like he's got a high health total, the other ones have Divine Shield, so probably a really high friction board to deal with. So I think that looks pretty nice. And as you're about to see with our final card, there are a lot of ways to make Silverhand Recruits to infuse this guy. Because this is the Sinful Sous Chef, a 1-mana 2/1 with Death Rattle. Add 2 Silverhand Recruits to your hand. So this card alone could infuse 3 on the buffet begin. It's all you need basically is this one. So you play this out on turn 1, get a couple Silverhand recruits, play those out on turn 2, and your guy is ready as long as he was chilling in hand from the beginning. So that could be a pretty crazy opener for this kind of deck. Outside of that, the Sinful Sous Chef here is just a nice little 1-drop, right? It's going to get you some immediate return. You can play out on curve nicely with the Silverhand recruits on the back half of this if you don't have anything else to do on turn 2, or maybe just bank those in hand to fill in your mana over time, or just realize some of those buffs off something like Steward the Steward. So all in all, this feels like a really nice filler piece that does a lot of things you want if you care about Silverhand recruits. And frankly, any kind of faster, aggressive tempo deck might just value a card like this anyway. It's just a way to get the game rolling, make sure they have stuff to do. Minions in hand can be great for hand buff strategies, of which, of course, Paladin succeeds greatly. So I think the Sinful Sous Chef checks off a lot of boxes for Paladin in particular. There is always the risk that 1 health is not super good into things like 1/3s on turn 1, but I think since a lot of the value of this is baked into the death rattle itself, that's not an enormous risk for a card like this one to overcome. So yeah, all 3 of these look like pretty nice synergistic cards with sometimes, independent value as well. I don't think they're strictly tied to Silverhand recruit decks, but certainly that's where they're likely to shine. Steward the Steward is a 4-star card. Buffet Biggin is a 4-star card. Sinful Sous Chef is a 4-star card. That might be the first review ever where I've given all 3 cards or all the cards the same score, but I think these all kind of fit really nicely into a package that looks like it could succeed and just feel like great effects for their cost. I mean, just look like good cards to me. So curious to hear what you guys think. Do you think this will work? Do you think it'll fail? How cute is Steward the Steward? I want to hear all those hot takes and more in the comments below. But until then, thanks much for watching, and until next time, game on.